She came up to the challenge.
Excuse me,
She
you meet
wanted
some strange
life.
woman and you start talking about how many husbands she's had and the guy she's with now isn't her husband. How many ladies would stand around wait to go through their conversation, right?
Just the fact that he spoke to her.
They just write, "Oh, you're a jerk," and they walk away, right? But she doesn't write him off as a jerk and walk away. No, she realizes something, that he has something that she really needs, and that he actually cares about her, instead of the other men that are there to use her.
She went back into town and said, "I met a man who told me all that."
She wanted life.
That's right.
She wanted life.
She wanted the truth.
Yeah.
And she couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Because she was looking for it in the wrong places.
Yeah.
She found it that day.
That's right. Because she found it in the right place. By the way, there's only one right place.
Amen.
There's only one way, one truth, one life.
Amen.
There's only one king. There's only one kingdom. There's only one way of salvation, right? That's the point. That's what the king is trying to tell us. But we creatures, we think we can come up with any old idea and we can make it work. How's that going? Doesn't work for anybody, right? So we can go through these stories. What I want to do is actually get to Jesus, the story of Jesus, because this is when the true king shows up, and you'll see the kingship in conflict. Now, Lucifer is the one, Satan, who we call Satan, who set this deal up and has been actually fighting with God ever since, actually before creation. At creation in Genesis 1:1, you see this conflict, right? The Creator is going to go forth and cause order, but there's this tohu bohu, there's this darkness and void, right? And so God has to overcome this darkness, and so he let there be light. So Genesis tells us a story, and you can see if you go to Psalm 74. I'm sorry I'm popcorning around, but there's just a lot of neat stuff about the
7:15.
Psalm 74. The psalmist actually gives us a parabolic form of creation. If you look in verse 74, verse 12, he's going to talk about creation in a very interesting way. He starts there. Is everybody there?
Yes.
He says, "For God is my king from of old." So notice we're dealing with a king, and of course you're going to deal with creation. "Working salvation in the midst of the earth. So you divided the sea by your strength. You broke the heads of the sea serpent in the waters." Then he goes on to say, "You broke the heads of Leviathan." Notice heads is plural. So when you get to Revelation, you're going to find these seven-headed dragons, right? Well, this actually comes from the Old Testament in terms of these stories of creation. So he breaks the heads of Leviathan. This Leviathan, or the sea dragon, the sea monster, has multiple heads. And he's actually the personification of the chaos of the sea, the water that's resisting the Creator's will. You'll notice in Revelation that all three of the seven-headed dragons are associated with water. We're going to get to Revelation 12, the red dragon of the sky. Remember, he's the water. He sends a flood of water out of his mouth to destroy the woman, right? The seven-headed dragon in Revelation 13 is going to come out of the sea. It's a water dragon. And then the seven-headed dragon of Revelation 17 that the harlot woman sits on, there's actually the source of waters. Of course, the waters that are there in Revelation 17 are going to be described as his peoples, the nations, the support, right? So,
which one was the first one? Revelation 1?
What's that?
The first dragon, Revelation.
Revelation 12. We're going to go to Revelation 12. So anyways, you'll notice he says, "You broke the heads of Leviathan." And so this is a reference to the seven-headed dragon. "You gave him as food to the people inhabiting the wilderness. You broke open the fountain and the flood. You dried up the mighty rivers." And of course, this is going to be a prophecy of what's going to happen in Revelation as well. "The day is yours and the night also. You have prepared the light and the sun. You have set all the borders of the earth. You have made summer and winter." So this is a little song that's being sung to the Creator, who's the king, but it's describing this strange conflict between this beast, this Leviathan, this dragon beast, that's actually resisting creation from going forward. And that's actually what's going on. And of course, we know when we go to Revelation 12 who that dragon beast is, right? Because it actually tells us who the dragon beast is. And who's the dragon beast? Or Leviathan? Well,
Is it Satan?
it's Satan. The serpent, that old serpent called Satan, or the devil, right? So he's very specific. So this seven-headed dragon that resists God at creation is Lucifer. He's been resisting God the whole time, right? So welcome to, now you're going to start getting to biblical symbolism, biblical imagery, right? That it's going to take something and it's going to put it in symbols and imagery for you, and then it's going to use those symbols and imagery to tell you a story. We'll get to Revelation 12. Let's talk about the birth of Christ first. Okay, so we're talking about the kingship and conflict. So when Jesus was born, everything was happy and the world happily received him, and there was no problems and everything went happily ever after, right?
Which book you've been reading?
So what happened at the birth of the king? Oh, by the way, when he was born, who was he? Was he
The child.
He was,
Nobody.
well, no,
Well, he was somebody.
that's right.
The world knew him not.
Okay, well, there were some wise men who knew him, who came to worship him. And the kings from the east. There's three of them, right? Of course, we say there's three, but we
Yeah,
say there's three
never
because
says.
there was three gifts.
But yeah.
The gold and incense and myrrh, so we say there's three kings. If you watch a little drummer boy. But the point is, kings come from the east, and they bow down before him, right?
Right.
Why are they bowing down to him?
Because they know who he is. They saw the star.
Because they saw the star.
Yeah, they started.
Right?
They
And
knew.
this is a sign that he's been born, the king. He's been born the king of the Jews. This is at his birth. He's inaugurated as king. I don't know if you ever celebrate Christmas, right? We talked about a tree last time. Most people for Christmas set up a tree in their house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you setting up a tree in your house?
Because it's pretty.
Because it's a symbol of the king. That's right. And at the top of the tree, by the way, what kind of tree is it?
An evergreen.
It's an evergreen because an evergreen represents eternal life, right? So it's an evergreen tree, kind of looks a little bit like that. And then the top of the tree comes what?
Star.
A star or an angel. And why is it a star or an angel?
Because the angel told it the good news.
Because the top of the tree, in your living room reaches all the way to heaven. There's an angel or there's a star there because it reaches to heaven. And then on the tree, usually there's these little bulbs because these are the planets. And there's little lights because those are the other stars. But that tree reaches from heaven all the way down to your living room.
I like that.
It reaches all the way down to your living room, right? And what happens when you wake up in the morning? Where there's all these gifts, and where do they come from? Well, these gifts came from heaven. And this tree is a tree of life. And you're worshiping the birth of the
Creator.
King. Because he is this living tree that connects heaven and earth and gives you the gifts of life. And that gift that he gives us is salvation, right?
So you're saying that there's real symbolism here of Christ in the tree, and yet Satan has so much come against us celebrating Christmas that way and says all those are pagan symbols.
Yes, but see, we're not getting it. Look, remember, let's go back to square one, okay? We worship the true God, but we worship in our own way.
Yeah.
So he takes the things of God and he does what?
Distorts them.
He twists them.
Yeah.
Okay? So Satanism and all these other false religions, is there truth? Is there seeds of truth behind what they're doing?
Yeah.
Yes, but they twist it to make it work the way they want. So there's people who they go through Christmas, they don't even understand what they're doing. But that does not mean that we can't understand what's really happening. Now what's interesting is that men take the things of God and they twist them. And then God comes along and he touches them and he brings them back to himself and he shows you the beautiful imagery behind it. Now the problem with this tree thing is that we actually worship on December 25th, which is actually the winter solstice, because the pagans worship the birth of light, right? Jesus wasn't born in December. He was born around sometime in October. But the point is, it doesn't matter, because the idea is that Jesus is the light of the world. So if you want to worship, if you want to celebrate the birth of light, then and if you know who Jesus is, it's not a problem. Anything, I don't care what they do. The fact is, it's a neat opportunity for us to walk around and talk about Jesus to people who won't talk about Jesus any other time of the year.
Yeah.
True.
So take advantage of the privilege and do it.
Right.
Well, I hate to sound stupid, And maybe I'm the only one here that's going to say that, but that's the first time I've ever heard any explanation of those symbolism that I could stand, because everything else was sounded like paganism.
Well, if you read Daniel chapter 4 like we did last time, you'll see the same tree imagery is used. And the top of the tree reaches all the way in Daniel 4. The top of the tree reaches all the way to heaven. And the bottom of the tree is all the way to the earth. And all the animals and birds and everybody found life and was nourished by that tree. It's a symbol of the tree of life. By the way, this is what Christians do. This is how Christians celebrate Christmas. How did you celebrate it? Well, they have another tree. And they actually put lights on that tree. It's called Hanukkah. By the way, that's where the word Enoch comes from. Enoch, same word, dedicated to God. So they have this tree. And they actually have lights on the tree. And there's 10 days, and they actually share gifts with each other. Well, excuse me, how come Jews are in their house lighting trees and sharing gifts, and Christians are in their house lighting trees and sharing gifts, and it's not connected, right? No, it just happened to be that way. Excuse me? No. By the way, Jesus celebrated the Feast of Lights. So this is legit. Yes? Hanukkah is legit. Well, if this is legit, the Jews are in their house, and they're putting lights on trees and sharing gifts, and it's wrong for Christians to be in their house, putting lights on trees and sharing gifts? Excuse me, what's so sinful about that? And if I'm actually worshiping the King and His birth, and I'm sharing the good news of the coming of the King that gives life, what's the problem with that?
Hey, Pastor, I have a question.
Just one?
Yeah.
Can I have
The more I listen to you, the stupider I get.
So is that Daniel 4:10?
Yeah, Daniel 4 is the symbol of the tree, right?
It's 10 when he says, "I was looking, behold, a tree in the midst."
Yeah, since you read that, we read that last week when we got together. That tree is a symbol of Nebuchadnezzar, who's the king, and he gives life to everything. Of course, it's actually not a symbol of Nebuchadnezzar, but right? Because throughout the Bible, a tree is going to be the symbol of a king, as we shall see, right?
Yes.
Because we have another tree that we celebrate.
Yeah,
It actually looks like this, right? And does it have anything to do with our king?
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually there's a notice on the top of this tree. What's the notice say?
King of the Jews.
He's the king. That's why they killed him. He's the king. We're going to look at that if we get there, right? So this tree imagery is
But actually, they're false worship with the Hanukkah thing, because they're doing it their own way and they don't believe in Christ.
well, yes. But the point is that the imagery behind Hanukkah is biblical. Jesus got the Feast of Lights. But the point is they rejected the Messiah.
They rejected.
That's right. That's true. But the point is the imagery. It's not the light that has changed. It's their reception of it that's been the problem, right? Yeah. So we're talking about the birth of the King. We're talking about Jesus. The whole idea of the star. And what happens? What does Herod try to do? What the nice guy Herod here?
Nice to kill him.
And by the way, who's the one behind Herod trying to kill him?
Satan.
Right, and we're going to see that in Revelation 12. Right? So they try to kill Jesus because he's the king. And the promise given to Mary in Luke 3 is that this child is going to be the one who's going to sit on the throne of David. He's the true king. This is the real deal, right? So then Jesus, after he flees to Egypt, and then he comes out of Egypt, he grows up, then he hears John's message, and he comes out to start his ministry, and then he goes into the wilderness. So what happens in the wilderness?
So he gets tempted by Satan.
Satan comes to tempt him. What does Satan tempt him to do?
Jump on the rocks into bread.
Okay.
Cast himself down from the temple.
Yeah. One more.
Change the bread.
Worship him. Yeah.
What does Satan show him?
The kingdoms of the world.
Satan shows him all the kingdoms of the world, and he says what?
All
Give all these to you if you bow down and worship me.
Okay, so if you bow down and worship me, then I'll make you the king.
There was another temptation too, wasn't it? Cast himself down from the temple.
There's three. But I'm just going to focus on the kingship. Because what the truth is that this is the issue behind every temptation. But the one that's most clear to us in terms of explaining this principle is the idea when he shows them all the kingdoms of the world, and then he says, if you bow down and worship me, I'll give these to you. You can be the king of this world. But of course, Jesus knows it's just not the kingship of the world that's the issue. It's the true kingship of all creation is really the issue.
Right.
And Jesus, the King of creation, isn't going to barter with this Yahoo and become the king of a couple little dumpy kingdoms that he showed little pretty pictures of. No, right? So, but the interesting thing is that Jesus is being tempted to give up his kingship for comfort, right? The short-term way of becoming king of this world. That I'll make you feel good in the short term. You don't have to die on the cross to become the king. I'll make you king right here now. Right? Of course, we fall for that. Adam fell for that. But Jesus didn't fall for that, right?
Praise
so the
God.
point here is that there's a conflict between the two kings. And then that's when Jesus says, get behind me, Satan, right? Because he knows he's not just interested in restoring the kingdoms of this world. He's actually the true king, and he's going to take his rightful place. But the point here is that this is kingship and conflict, and Satan's playing the game, right?
7:30.
It's 7:30. Okay, we'll wrap it up. I'll try to wrap it up. Okay, what I want to do is just go briefly to Christ's crucifixion and talk about that. If you can go to whatever. I'll go to John 18:19, but you can bounce back and forth to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You know how they tell different stories. Remember, they take Jesus and they hand him over to Pilate. Remember, and Pilate asks them. Pilate tries to squirm out of it, and he tries to offer them this deal, right? Because he has two prisoners, right? Barabbas and he said, and so he tries to offer them to choose one to be let go, and who do they choose? Barabbas. And who is Barabbas?
The thief.
Kill him.
Yeah.
Was he a murderer?
Yeah. Well, Jesus, Barabbas. I've shared this before, but
It's a robber of the kingdom.
Barabbas, Bar is son of, and this Abba is the father. So Barabbas is a false Messiah. He's the claims to be the son of God or the son of the Father. And what they do, what the Jews do, is they choose Barabbas as their Messiah, as their king, because Barabbas promises to free them from the tyranny of Rome. So you just give him a sword, he'll kill all the Romans, and then we'll be free.
He's a savior.
So he's this idea, well, we can save ourselves, we just got to pick up the sword and deliver ourselves from Rome. But excuse me, does that save them from sin?
No.
Well, they don't believe they have a problem with that, right?
Right.
So Barabbas is this false Messiah that they actually choose as their king. Of course, he's not the only king they're going to choose. Who's the other king they choose? Well, if you go to John chapter 18,
You have no king but
Caesar.
that's right. If you go to it's John 19, verse 15. They cry, away with him, crucify him. Pilate said, shall I crucify your king? And the chief priests answered,
We have no king.
we have no king
But
but
Caesar.
Caesar. So they choose the king of this world, which really they're choosing Satan, right, to be their king.
Yeah.
So they choose the king of this world and they reject Christ as their king. But notice this discussion, this very interesting discussion between Jesus and Pilate, right? Verse 29 of 18. Pilate went out and said, what accusation do you bring against this man? They answered and said, if you were not an evildoer, we would not deliver him. So Pilate said, take him and judge him by your own law. And the Jews said to him, it's not lawful for us to put anybody to death. The saying of Jesus might be fulfilled, saying what kind of death he would die. Then Pilate enters the praetorium again and called Jesus and said to him, are you the king? And Jesus answered, are you speaking this of yourself about me, or did others tell you concerning me? So Pilate, am I a Jew? Your own nation, chief priests have delivered me. What have you done? Then Jesus tells very plainly, my kingdom is not of this world. By the way, Jesus' kingdom is never going to be of this world.
Yeah.
This idea that he's going to set up his kingdom.
Yeah.
Jesus is not setting up his kingdom in this mess.
No, man.
No. Right? Then he says, if my kingdom were of this world, my servants, my subjects would fight. By the way, that's what Barabbas is doing, right? That I should be delivered from the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here. Then Pilate says to him, so you are a king. Then Jesus answered and said, what? This is
I say if I am the king.
You have rightly said, I am a king. Now notice what he says. For this
And
cause, for this very reason, this is the purpose, I was born. For this cause I have come into this world. Why did Jesus come? Because he's the king.
Yes.
He came to, as the king of this world, to reestablish his kingdom and his authority in this world, in this earth. His kingdom's not here, but the subjects that he's trying to save are
here.
Yes.
So he came to save us out of this mess. He said, this is very interesting. He says, this was the reason that I came. So he says, I am a king. For this cause I was born. For this cause I came into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. Notice the king and this idea of worship is all connected to the concept of truth. By the way, truth is the word for reality, the way things really are. That's why Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? Because he's the king. He's the creator. He establishes all reality, all truth.
But Pilate said to him, well, what is truth? And then he didn't even listen for an answer.
Well, yes, because what Pilate is saying is he's not looking for an answer. Because Pilate he's dealing with the maturing of a society, and what Roman society has matured in is called relativism. Kind of an ancient, strange concept, right? Where reality is whatever I want it to be. So Pilate believes that reality is whatever he wants it to be, because that's the ultimate end of this, right? If you're the creature and you can make reality whatever you want it to be, then everything's relative.
But it's kind of ironic that he says that to him when Jesus is the truth.
Well, but that's why Jesus is speaking to him that way, because he's trying to he's challenging the concepts of reality that Pilate has accepted as reality, but it's not. So it's very insightful. So this whole idea is going to come, and then of course chapter 19 is going to talk about this idea of king and the Jews and whoever makes themselves king, and then the charge against Jesus, he's the king of the Jews. And so because he's the king, the soldiers are going to wrap him in this purple robe, and they're going to give him a crown, and they're going to bow down before him, and they're going to give him a little scepter, and then they say, well, this is really mocking him. But are they mocking him? No. They're actually fulfilling prophecy. Because is he not the king?
Yes.
Is he not the king of sufferers?
Yes.
Is he not promised that he, like Abel, would come and die, and through his death he would deliver any who will receive him? Yeah, so the point here is that all this stuff that happens to him is actually prophesied to happen because he is the king. But the thing is that this king comes in a way that we would never expect, because we're all about us and our feelings. And we have no idea that this king would come and bear such pain and sorrow and bear all this mess just to give us life. That doesn't make sense in our mind. We would never do that. We hardly go out of the way when we're driving down the road for somebody, right? But Jesus comes, and he's the true king. And he lays down his life. He demonstrates the principles of self-sacrificing love, which is the fundamental principle, the essence of his kingdom and of his name. He declares his kingdom, right? Mm-hmm. And so this battle between the kings of this world and the true king has been going on. Mm-hmm. Now, the battle is won. Jesus dies on the cross, and of course through his resurrection he proves that he has power over death. He is the true king of life. The battle is won, but the war isn't over. Right? And so now this battle for the kingship is still raging. And this is where we're going to be going. We're going to start looking into Daniel, because Daniel is actually going to start telling us a story. And I'll say this real quickly and then we'll go. But the Bible talks about the present and the future by describing the past. Okay, so that's why I've started with the war in heaven and went through Genesis and kind of inched our way through and kind of landed with Christ, because what the Bible does is it tells us the present and the future by describing the past. And that's what prophecy does, and that's what we're going to be doing. When we get into Daniel and start studying the kingdom, we're going to look at the past, and then by understanding the past and the principles of the past, then we can understand the present and also understand the future. And that's where we're going to be going. Okay? All right, let's stop with prayer and then. Dear Heavenly Father, love that would not let us go. Thank you so much for sending your Son to lay down his life for us, to bear our sin, to bear our death, that we could actually have life. Lord, we live in this world, in the darkness and the pain and the suffering, but Father, we want your kingdom to live in us. We want to be your subjects. We want to shine the light of your love in this darkness. There's many things opposing us as things in ourselves that oppose us. But Father, we want to subject ourselves to you, that you are the true King, that you are the way, the truth, and the life, that you are the only way, that you are the only truth, and you are the only life. So thank you so much for loving us. Thank you so much for sending your Spirit to guide us. Be with us as we go home. Bless us as we wrestle in our minds to open your word and understand these things. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.